Hello everyone. In this video lecture, we are going to cover midbrain. In the earlier video lectures, we have covered the forebrain. Now, in this video lecture, I am going to cover midbrain in this single page. Now, let me first make you understand the location of the midbrain, where midbrain is present. And in anatomical terms, we call midbrain as mesencephalon. So, you can see it is present here in the inferior side of the brain, or we can say it is the first part of the brain stem. You can see this particular part, this small part is midbrain. Now, how midbrain looks actually from the anterior and posterior side, and what are the significance of midbrain, what are the structures, or we can say what are the important or significant anatomical structures present in the midbrain, as we are studying the anatomy of midbrain. So let me first tell you, there is a duct known as cerebral aqueduct. This cerebral aqueduct connects third and fourth ventricle, as there are certain cavities in the brain in which cerebrospinal fluid, or we can say CSF, flows. So these cavities where CSF flows is known as ventricles, and this cerebral aqueduct is a duct which connects third and fourth ventricle. How it looks? It looks like a narrow passage via mesencephalon or midbrain. So if we, you can see, this is the midbrain part, this is the midbrain, and in this midbrain, this greenish duct is cerebral aqueduct, and this is the third ventricle and this is the fourth ventricle. So third ventricle is getting connected to the fourth ventricle via this cerebral aqueduct. This cerebral aqueduct is lined by ciliated columnar epithelium. Now, how does this particular midbrain looks from the back side? Like if we have this midbrain, so how it looks from this side, this particular side. So here you can see, what are these? These are nothing but crus cerebri, which make crus cerebri, cerebral peduncles in the anterior region of the forebrain. So in the posterior side, what we can see certain colliculi. These are the colliculi. Actually, this is nothing but these are cerebral peduncles. Cerebral peduncles are also the part of midbrain. Midbrain actually constitute of various things like these cerebral peduncles, these colliculi, and other structure which I will make you understand in the later part of this video. So from the back, this is how midbrain looks alike. So these round bodies are nothing but these are colliculi. These are known as colliculi. The superior one are the superior colliculi and lower ones are the inferior colliculi. Now one thing you have to remember, that these superior colliculi are bigger in shape and these inferior colliculi are smaller in shape. These superior colliculi, due to their shape, are known as nates, and these inferior colliculi are known as testes. These superior colliculi are associated with visuospinal reflex. What does this mean? That these are connected with the eye region. So whenever we have a reflex from our vision, so they come first into this superior colliculi, and whenever we have a reflex from audition, or we can say hearing, it comes to the inferior colliculi. So superior colliculi are associated with the eye and inferior colliculi are associated with the ears. So this is how the particular back of the midbrain looks alike. Let me come to this particular part after a while. So how cerebral midbrain looks in the front? If we are seeing the ventral structure of the brain, like this is the brain, and if we are seeing this part of the midbrain, so how it looks like? Firstly, we have these cerebral peduncles in the ventral surface. I made you understand about the cerebral peduncles, so let me come to this particular part now. The structure which is visible to us on the ventral surface is the part of cerebral peduncles. These are not cerebral peduncles, but these are the part of cerebral peduncles, like this cylindrical region. This is the part of cerebral peduncle which is known as crus cerebri. What it is known as? Crus cerebri. And the region between two crus cerebri is nothing but interpeduncular fossa. Why peduncular? Interpeduncular, because it is between the two peduncles. Like these are the two bigger peduncles. Now in the cross section, how midbrain look like if I will cut the midbrain like this, so how it will look like? So in the anterior end, or we can say in the ventral end, we would be having what? crus cerebri. Then after we having a dark structure known as substantia nigra. Which thing? Substantia nigra. And this substantia nigra has an important feature which I will discuss along the video as it goes further away. And now after the substantia nigra in the cross section we can find tegmentum, and this tegmentum continues to which thing? Pons varolii also. Okay. And finally in the most dorsal end we would be having which thing? Tectum. And in the center of tectum the cerebral aqueduct would be flowing. So the dorsal most part of the midbrain is tectum, then we have tegmentum, then substantia nigra, and finally crus cerebri. And all these structure is nothing but crura cerebri or cerebral peduncles. After this we have pons and medulla. So this region of medulla, this region of midbrain is the front region, and this region of the midbrain is the back region. Now how interpeduncular fossa look? Interpeduncular fossa has a dot like structure here from which a nib like thing arises, from which pituitary gland is attached, and this region from which this infundibulum or nib-like region arises is tuber cinereum, and this nib-like region is infundibulum. And lower to this infundibulum we have some round oval shaped bodies known as mammillary bodies. So these were the three things which were present in this interpeduncular fossa. Now let me tell you about an important disease which is associated with the midbrain. Actually, between this substantia nigra which was present here in the cerebral peduncle and basal ganglia. What are these basal ganglia? I made you understand in forebrain that basal ganglia are the association of what? Cell bodies in CNS, and they are deep into the cerebrum. So there are certain connections of neurons between this substantia nigra of midbrain and basal ganglia of forebrain. So forebrain and midbrain have a neuronal pathway from which they communicate. This pathway has a movement of dopamine which is associated generally for movement. This dopamine flows through these neurons between basal ganglia and substantia nigra, and this pathway is known as dopaminergic pathway. Whenever this dopaminergic pathway get destroyed or degenerated, it causes Parkinson disease. What is this Parkinson disease? In Parkinson disease, a person is not able to do considerable movements. Why? Because dopamine is not getting into the muscles, is not produced, or we can say not transported between substantia nigra and basal ganglia. So this was all about the midbrain. Let me revise it for you in a jiffy. So midbrain is located above the pons varolii and below the diencephalon. There is a duct known as cerebral aqueduct which passes through the midbrain, and it connects third and fourth ventricle. Also ciliated columnar epithelium is lined in the cerebral aqueduct. Back of the brain has these colliculi. The upper ones are superior colliculi associated with eye. The lower ones are the inferior colliculi associated with the ears. And now we have the front portion of midbrain. Front portion of midbrain has these crus cerebri, and after the crus cerebri we have substantia nigra, then tegmentum, and finally tectum. Between the tectum we have cerebral aqueduct which flows, and all these crus cerebri, substantia nigra, tegmentum and tectum forms crura cerebri or cerebral peduncles. And between the cerebral peduncles we have interpeduncular fossa where infundibulum mammillary bodies are present. And there is a disease which occurs if dopaminergic pathway which is between substantia nigra and basal ganglia get affected, is produced a disease, and that the disease name is Parkinson disease. Thanks. And this was all about the midbrain.